I'm in a mother's kitchen in East Palo Alto, California. Family photos on every surface. She walks in, she turns on the tap, and she studies the stream. Then she turns to me, and quietly she asks, "So, is it safe or not?" I'm an assistant professor of civil and environmental engineering at Stanford University. My research focuses on operationalizing equity in water infrastructure systems. I use tools such as statistical modeling, surveys, focus groups, and water quality tests to better understand how households interact with their water infrastructure systems. However, in this moment, I do not know how to answer her. It is not because I lack the expertise or the technical knowledge, but rather, how do you explain to someone who the system may have failed that the system may have failed them? I felt my chest tighten, and it wasn't embarrassment, but rather shame. That all of my training, all of my technical expertise has taught me how to explain a system rather than explaining to someone who the system has failed, something that may be helpful to them. Let me start from the beginning. I started my PhD at the University of Texas at Austin in 2016. I entered the water sector expecting to find a field organized around the people in which it serves. Rather, what I found was a field organized around pipes and regulations. I read compliance reports, master's plans, strategic frameworks from utilities across the US in search of one word, equity, but it was nowhere to be found. The question of which communities benefit or burden from the way that we manage and operate water systems was just simply absent. No one was having the conversation, and so I thought I would ask the question. Over the years, I spent a lot of time trying to give language to that gap. I was funded by a Ford Foundation Fellowship and a Gates Millennium Fellowship, and I had developed frameworks and definitions for water equity, yet that work remained largely on paper. I was reading, writing, modeling. When I got to Stanford in 2022, I knew that I wanted to work with communities hands-on. And so I reached out to Nuestra Casa in East Palo Alto, California. There, I met Jennifer Adams, who was already working to fight for water justice in her own community. And funny enough, when I was using the case study of Nuestra Casa in East Palo Alto in my Equitable Infrastructure Solutions class, a student came up to me after class and said, "Professor Osman, you've got to meet Mama Monica." And I said, "Evan, I've got two questions for you. One, who is Mama Monica? And two, why am I calling her Mama?" Evan told me that Monica Lewis Patrick, the founder of We the People of Detroit, has been fighting for water rights in Detroit for longer than he has been born. In conversations with both Monica and Jennifer, it was clear that they didn't need for me to tell them that their water might have a problem. Rather, they needed institutional access and somebody who would show up, and not just show up, but show up and stay. Often, when I would ask them, "What is the one thing that you want from your water system?" they would tell me that families just want clean water for their children. And when I would reply to them, "Why haven't you asked the authorities about this?" they would say, "We have, and we keep getting told the same thing, that the water is safe by their standards." It did not matter that the water ran brown or so white that you would mistake it for milk. It did not matter that the water tasted metallic or that it would leave your skin feeling itchy or your hair feeling sticky. The water was safe by their standards. And the conversation often stopped there. I remember a woman in East Palo Alto told me that she used to spend about $15 per week on jugged water just so that she would have drinking water in her home pre-COVID. And after COVID, that same jug of water is now costing her about $45 per week. And this is in addition to the water bill that she already pays for all the other household items that she has to take care of. You can imagine washing dishes, washing your clothes, maybe even watering the lawn. In Detroit, you couldn't imagine the things that people are using bottled water for. Things such as filling their pets' bowls, watering plants, and in some cases, respondents told us that they were using it to wash their children's hair. I did not want to build a science that continued a disservice to these communities. I wanted to start where they start, not where engineers often start, which is at the treatment plant or in the distribution main. Communities experience water at the tap. And so when we set out to partner with Nuestra Casa and We the People of Detroit to test tap water, to test household water, we wanted to make sure that we were starting at the tap. We recruited 50 households in East Palo Alto and another 50 in Detroit. You may think that 100 households is trivial, but in these communities where deep distrust of institutions already exists, it was a feat. We were asking families to trust us with something intimate, their homes, their time, their kitchen faucets. And we were asking them to allow us into their homes at sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning. Thank you to all the graduate students who went with us. But we had to capture their water at 4 or 5 in the morning so that we were capturing everything that was in the pipes overnight, and to ensure that our water samples were capturing everything that they were experiencing. This required in East Palo Alto that we work with promoteras, community members who also work with Nuestra Casa. And Detroit, we worked with We the People of Detroit's youth. And you'd be amazed to see how much the community was receptive to seeing young people in their community participating in citizen science, going to homes and collecting water samples, doing something that may better their community in the long run. A lot of these families either welcomed us into their houses and walked us through every faucet that was existing. Others told us that they would like us to come, but then later dropped out. And finally, some simply said, "We don't trust institutions enough to allow you to come to our home and test our water." Over the course of the year, we were able to collect over 300 water samples across 46 different contaminants. These include common things such as iron, arsenic, nitrates, total dissolved solids, you name it. And what was interesting is I was sitting in my office when the first batch of data came through, and I saw a scatter across my screen that I just couldn't believe. I was shocked. A household had iron levels 20, 50, and sometimes 100 times higher than a household down the street. And across all the contaminants that we tested for and all the different factors that we modeled, two factors were the most significant in predicting whether or not your water would have higher levels of contamination: the building age and the provider. It did not matter what season it was. It did not matter whether you lived in the home, whether you lived in a single-family home or a multi-family home. It did not matter whether you rented or owned. It was the provider and the pipes. For every 10 additional years of building age, we detected 22% higher levels of iron, 18% higher levels of zinc, 14% higher levels of iron and manganese, 12% higher levels of lead. And across 3/4 of our samples, we detected lead levels that were high. What was interesting to me was that there was variation across households, not variation within the same household across time. So a household that may have had bad water this month would continue to have bad water next month. However, that same household that's across the street or down the block may have better water. Two families living under the same regulatory umbrella, served by the same system, with two fundamentally different water realities. I expected to find differences in water between the cities. That wasn't that surprising. But what unsettles me is the randomness of it all. The fact that whether your children drank water with higher lead levels didn't depend on any decision that you made or permission that you gave to anyone to make decisions on your behalf, but rather it depended on decisions made long before you even lived there. And what scares me the most is that these communities are not far away. East Palo Alto is a 10-minute drive from my office. Detroit is a city where families are dealing with a water system that was built for populations 3 times its size. When I come back and think about that moment in that mother's kitchen and how it changed the way that I do research, it was profound. I no longer wanted to start the research where we start, as engineers, which is always trying to give precision to a problem. Because I realized through this work, and don't get me wrong, I still believe in precision, but that precision without proximity is just another way of keeping communities at an arm's length, right? They're not a part of our systems. They're not a part of our problem. And so more than anything, being in that mother's kitchen, having her ask me, is the water safe or not, has changed the way that I wanted to build my research program. Now, we start with the communities at the table with us, as partners, as co-developers, as co-producers, and oftentimes as teachers, because they are the experts in their own experiences. Till this day, I continue to try to build a science that does not hide behind standards. Standards designed to protect systems rather than people. so that no one ever has to explain to their water authority why they believe their water may be unsafe. Thank you.